Yeah, I can hear you fine.
How are you? Yeah, both having tech issues today.
Yeah, my webcam's not even working. I don't know what's
Oh,
been going
God.
on. But
No, I'm over in Jersey. I just travelled over. That's why I've been a bit kind of like chaotic. But I just travelled over on the ferry yesterday to see my mum because she's
ah,
elderly. She's been shielding. She's been on her own like for like
oh
5
yeah.
months.
Oh
So
yeah, okay.
I'm like, oh, I'll be able to work from home. I'll be there for 10 days. I cannot get tech access at all on my Surface Pro, so any internet connection, and it's
Oh
not
no.
the Wi-Fi. It's not the Wi-Fi here. I think it's something to do with GLA firewalls or something. So I'm like, oh God, and the tech desk is so difficult to get hold of. So I'm like, I may
Yeah.
be forced to take some leave because I just don't know if I'm going to be able to work.
No,
But
that sounds
anyway,
awful.
I
So
digress. How can I
stressful.
help you, though? That's all
Oh,
right. How can I help you?
well, first of all, I just sort of wanted to ask. Obviously, you have a very prolific history with boxing in England, so I'd love to know what
Mm.
got you engaged in sports in the first place.
Oh, I just have such a weird kind of like left field CV. So, yeah, I was, Cambridge educated, daughter of two doctors from Jersey,
Mm,
went into publishing, worked in publishing for a long time, became like an international publishing manager, and then I had my son in '96, so he's like God 24 now. And
oh,
after I was always kind of quite sporty, so I did like gymnastics and athletics, and then I was like an athlete at uni. I was a sprinter.
yeah.
But when I had my baby, I like just become really like overweight and bored and frustrated, and I didn't really like just going down the gym.
Mm,
And so I was just literally driving down Herne Hill in southeast London, and I saw this boxing gym above a pub. It was like one of the last boxing gyms above the pubs. There used to
oh
be
yeah.
loads of them in Herne Hill. It was run by an ex-pro called Clinton McKenzie,
Mm,
and he was one of the first to kind of like take the contact out of boxing and offer it to the general public, like Sugar Ray Leonard was doing it in the States, but Clinton did it over here and just become
mm,
known as like boxing fitness. So I just popped in, and he was like, I can get the weight off you, you'll really enjoy the training. So I kind of committed to 6 weeks of just training like a dog, and I lost loads of weight, and I really enjoyed it. But whilst I was there, I sort of saw a lot of really interesting things happening with the sport around. There were kids in there from the local estates, and then there were like stockbrokers coming in and hanging up their brogues, and kind of like
mm,
they were all talking together and training together. And I thought this is actually quite magical, sort of like bringing the community together and
yeah.
like over breaking down boundaries and things. So it all kind of went from there. So I did a bit of coaching. I did a couple of white collar fights. And then a friend of mine got me into officiating, so I became a judge and then
Mm,
eventually a referee. But at the same time, I was thinking I was more interested in the kind of, as interested anyway, in the community side of the sport.
yeah.
So joined up with a guy who had money and had the same interests as me, and decided to start a charity, which was
Mm,
doing the model that Clinton was doing, but kind of he had no income or no wherewithal or no management experience to kind of expand it and extend it. So we started the charity in Peckham in 2011, and it's kind of grown from there. And at the same
mm,
time, I was also sort of expanding my skills and upgrading and everything as a judge and referee. So I'm like a national, well, pretty much international referee now.
oh yeah.
So I do like international team matches and things. So that's how it all started.
Mm,
But strange, a bit kind of, I guess I wouldn't have said at the time that I was setting up a sport for development charity, because I didn't know those were the words to use, but that effectively is what we were doing.
yeah.
Um, and just this real strong belief in that lots of sports, but particularly boxing for some reason, in the sort of area of very disadvantaged young people, it seems to speak to them and have that kind of cool factor that engages them where other sports don't.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, so yeah, that's where it all came from.
So would you say, sort of based on that, that the community is kind of like the key when it comes to sports, and like it engages people and brings people together?
Yeah, yeah, that's why I'm doing what I do now. So
Mm,
I basically, I'm in charge of the mayor's community sport team
yeah.
and his sort of investment program. So that's where my kind of passion and interest lies, because obviously, like, I'm interested in the boxing sort of context in the elite talent pathway, and I love kind of doing the championships and seeing
Yeah.
the boxers excel. But for me, I think it's much more about the sort of social outcomes of sport and how it kind of does just
Mm,
all the cliches. Really, they're cliches partly because they're true. Level the playing field, give people opportunities, give people
Yeah.
sort of training, education, career opportunities, all those things. I really believe in that. So that's kind of where my real passion lies, I guess.
Yeah. So I want to sort of focus on female sports, and I want to ask if you think that currently female sports is accessible and inclusive enough.
No, I don't. I mean, I think it's getting better. I think it's really interesting at the moment, isn't it, with Black Lives Matter and
Yeah.
the anti-racism work. And that's, you know, I find it difficult, if I'm being really honest with you, because I've experienced quite, not really badly, but some sexism and discrimination against me as a woman, but as I've gone through sort of my boxing kind of career as an official.
Yeah.
And that's the only way that I can kind of identify with, you know, because I'm white and privileged and everything, with the problems that people have about people trying to keep them down because of their
Yeah.
ethnicity or their background or whatever. And I know it's not the same, but I think there's certain elements where I can identify with that, and I have had it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've had the weirdly opposite experience, which is being pushed forward as a female in sport when you're not in your lane, which is not equally bad, but quite dangerous as well, because people will use you as a poster girl
Right.
to meet their quotas and
Yeah.
to, you know, look good. And I've had experiences where I've been asked to referee female championships, and it was televised, and they wanted a female referee, but I wasn't qualified to that standard, and I was under pressure to do it, and I did it. And then when I was actually supposed to be upgraded to that level, they said, no, you're not ready. And I was like, but you were prepared to like throw me to the wolves to referee a championship bout when I wasn't qualified, you know what I mean? So it's that kind of thing. So I think there's a lot of that. There's a lot of danger, especially with young girls and young black girls out there now who have real career potential and opportunities to progress and excel in sport or around sport, being used for people to prove their point around inclusivity and accessibility, and it's not always genuine. And I say that quite openly and honestly, because I know a lot of people would probably take issue with me. At the same time, as I think there are some very genuine attempts to make female sport more accessible and give girls and young women opportunity. You know, like obviously the football is a fantastic case in point. Women's football in England's just like, you know, massive and really got its own following. So there's some great things happening, but I think it's slow, and I think it's still got a long way to catch up. I think there's also a class issue there, though, that I talked about with my colleagues about. So the ethnicity isn't the be all and end all. You can have a great ethnicity sort of balance in your organisation, but actually there's other issues around how we recruit people and retain them in the sport. And so, for example, if you take recruitment as a case in point, those recruitment drives need to be framed and offered in a way that is also going to suit people who don't necessarily do well in a competency-based interview or you know, filling in an application form. There's got to be lots of other ways where people can express their strengths and their abilities and have those taken count of in an equal way. Am I making sense?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's as well, like just to quickly touch on disabled sports, there's like a lot of people get turned down because they can't express the same level of like sort of skill in like a test to join a club. Like I heard about recently that there was someone with cerebral palsy who tried to try out for a football team, and the coach asked them to do like several laps around the field, and they physically couldn't do it after a period of time, and they just said, right, well, I can't take you on, I can't help you. Like they were just
it's madness, isn't it? And
absolutely.
COVID has made all of this worse, massively worse. It's not only like revealed it and highlighted it, all these inequalities, but it's also exacerbated. So a lot of the insight that my team's getting in right now from, you know, from all kinds of community grassroots organisations in London is that, you know, if you have intellectual impairments, for example, not just the physical disabilities, you can't navigate the digital world, right? So lockdown was awful for those people because there's all this information coming in ways that they couldn't access or they couldn't make head nor tail of, you know. So it's not just simple kind of making everything digital and then it will be accessible to everybody, because it's not a replacement for face-to-face interaction and understanding the real challenges that people are facing. You know, I think there's been this real push to think, well, you know, online digital delivery, sporting delivery, whatever, coaching courses, workforce support, it doesn't take the place of like face-to-face interaction. And there has to be alternative offers as well when it's, you know, and this is part of the return to play stuff that we were trying to talk about on the webinar. It's not just about getting everyone together and everything's going to be okay again. You've got all the people who aren't confident now in coming out. So females in sport always had the issues around, you know, safety and body image and what to wear to train and all of those things. And if you're a black girl, if you can't go down the swimming pool because they don't have, you know, the ability for you to like do your hair. I mean, think basic things that stop people from taking part in things. That's now just worse because, you know, because of lockdown and all the anxiety that people have about being confident, even if they're able to come back out and join in physical activity and sport.
Do you think so then that this COVID pandemic will have sort of lasting effects on female sporting opportunities then?
I'm not so much sure about opportunities. I do think it's going to have an effect on everybody's mental health. It's having an effect on everybody's mental health. So where there were issues before and problems before, it's probably worse now. So there were inequalities, inaccessibilities, lack of confidence, whatever there may have been before. I don't think anything's been helped by it, for sure.
No. So just looking at like ideal changes, obviously you're the head of community sport at the Greater London Authority. What changes would you personally like to see happen, like to sort of engage more women with sport, particularly those from, you know, BAME backgrounds or those who might experience like prejudice?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question. And for me, my experience is always going to be rooted in sort of on the ground grassroots delivery. So if you ask a colleague of mine who is very policy driven and politically driven, he would be talking about looking at, so from a Premier League level, say you're looking at women's football and you need to address it from the top down. For me, it's going to be looking at really good practice on the ground and then trying to expand and embed and support and extend that. And maybe both is right, and hopefully then it can sort of meet in the middle. But we want to do more about, I think what we try to do in my team is call out the initiatives that we fund and support. We call them out as to what they are. So if we have an academy project with football academies, which is working with young male players, we'll call that out and we'll say this is what we're doing. And then we will also call out initiatives that are working with female players, women and girls, or working with disability beneficiaries. And we're not trying to muddy the water and say everything has to be inclusive to everybody, because not every intervention is suitable for everybody. So it's about having a balance where we're identifying and getting the insight about where the groups are who need support. And it's not just about funding, it's about reward and recognition and giving people a platform to talk about their successes, and you know, making sure that young women and girls are aware that they don't have to excel at sport to be able to have a career or an enjoyment in many, many different kinds of sporting activities. There's the, you know, all around, like the management, the fundraising, the officiating, the coaching, all of those things, and making sure that those opportunities, not just the sporting participation, are made accessible and communicated to them in a way that speaks to them. And, you know, so just as like a little example, because it's easier if I give particular examples, flag football. So we're starting a partnership, hopefully, subject to confirmation with NFL UK and their foundation. Flag football, it's their non-contact sort of 5-on-5 accessible form of American football, and it's really inclusive. I mean, it's majorly inclusive. There's a part for absolutely everybody, no matter what shape, size, girls, boys, whatever in between, everything. If you're not great at sport, if you can't catch, you can bat the ball down. If you're not fast, you can. And we're starting something with them where we can incorporate that with some of our organisations that deliver multi-sport activity as another offer that's going to maybe speak to more women and young girls, because it's not a traditional sport where they're going to, you know, something new, something really that they can do, that they can excel at, that has opportunities and has great social outcomes. So I think it's about thinking a little bit differently outside the box around what opportunities you're offering females in sport, and making sure that there's that breadth of opportunity and that upskilling for them specifically, and around the mental health side of it, they're giving them the confidence to understand they can excel, you know, having the right workforce to support them and speak to them in ways that they understand. So there's a whole load of elements to this. It's not going to be an easy solution, but we're trying to explore and pilot some of these things and then evaluating the impact, making sure that we measure the right kind of outcomes for those groups so that we can see what works and what doesn't work and build on that in the future.
Yeah, it's really important to engage and understand that it's not a one size fits all with sport, like especially around like disability sport. A lot of people think it's like all disabilities are one and the same, even now, which is interesting.
It's really hard because we tested out some socially distanced sport, like you know, on the webinar, but you
Yeah, of
can't really
course.
test out socially distanced disability sport because the challenges and are so specific to both the sport and the disability
Oh,
and the sort
definitely.
of context in which they are operating at the moment at home, struggling. So it's huge. We are trying to embed like good sort of inclusive disability practices in everything that we do. So for example, I think, for example, if we're evaluating a grant application and we have panels, we're trying to involve not just experts from disability organisations, but also beneficiaries of the programmes that we may have run in the past or that they have run in the past. So young beneficiaries might sit on the panel, or disabled people might sit on that panel and have comments on the applications that we might not have thought of, because we don't. I mean, I'm a top team of 7, so we're really good at what we do, right? My team's great, but we don't have all the answers or all the expertise at all. So setting up advisory groups with the right representation, having people have the ability to put their perspective in and speak, those things are all really important as well, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And just sort of to finish off, I was just wondering what your advice might be for, say, somebody like maybe a young woman, potentially from a BAME background, who's just wants to get involved in sport but feels kind of anxious about it, like how they will be treated, like, and just not sure if they can like handle it. I just wanted to know what you would say to them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, I have a London perspective, but I imagine these problems are, they're universal. I think it's looking at local organisations that do that are going to be, how can I put it, that have that sort of ethos, like it might just be doing a little bit of research, talking to their friends, their peers, talking to their teachers, their coaches, or whoever it might be, trusted adults, to say these are the things that I'm worried about. There are really good organisations like Women in Sport who have got really good research and insight around, the people who they might approach and talk to get that confidence to take the first step. And if London Sport, again, have really good research banks, insight banks, you could speak to people in these organisations if they have the confidence. Otherwise, I think it's just to try it. I know it sounds really hard, but sometimes you have to go out and try something, and then if you have a bad experience, not let it put you off. And that's tough, but I think sometimes that is the only way to find out. Try lots of different things with your mates, with people that you feel happy and confident with, and then if it doesn't go well, you don't like it, kind of go, okay, but that's not going to stop me trying. And I think some of the young girls that I've been so impressed with in sport have just been the ones that have gone, I'm going to keep doing it, I have the right, I'm going to go out there, I'm going, and not everyone has that confidence, but I think you can associate yourself with people who have that confidence. So you say, like, come along with me. And I think that sense of community is really important, especially to us girls. Like, I love it. In boxing, the refereeing's my social life, and I love, like, but when I first started it, I was the only girl amongst a load of guys, and I had to be a little bit ballsy. I had to try to be one of the mates, one of the lads, and it was quite difficult sometimes to kind of just front it out and then forge my own way. And it can be quite lonely, so I do really understand those things. I think finding like-minded people, and team sports, like where you feel like you can really, because individual sports can be tough as well. You can be quite lonely, can't you, doing that? So I think it's trial and error, and hopefully believing that the landscape is changing, that there's a lot of people out there who are aware and are trying to sort of level things up, but it is just a work in progress. Happening from the bottom up and the top down, and eventually hopefully we'll start to see a lot more representation on boards and a lot more people who are speaking out, for women and girls and their participation and their opportunities.
No, I think it's just taking the initiative to take those first steps. It might be a little bit daunting at first, but like with the way things are going, I think the rewards will be massive, because like sport is just so fantastic on so many different levels for a person.
And obviously remaining safe. I think, being really safe at the moment, taking all the precautions that you would, but also not letting if possible. It sounds so glib when I say it, but not letting fear dominate you. I think it's a balance. It's a balance, and I think those trusted adults, for me, if I was to identify one thing that I really want to, I think is going to be key now going forwards, is that sports coaches, sports PE teachers are now, they're so much more than what they've had to be before. Because they've always been those people, those link workers with, especially with young people around, giving them the confidence to try things. You know as well as I do, if you had a really bad PE teacher at school, it kind of could put you off for life.
Definitely.
If you had a great one, and those people are like gold dust, they're so important. And now they're having to be, you know, bereavement counsellors and mental health specialists, and because they can't signpost people to the right necessarily statutory authorities because they're overwhelmed. And so I'm going to be focusing a lot on the next phase of our program, is sort of upskilling, training, supporting generally the workforce, community sport workforce, but particularly female coaches and teachers in having that confidence and having that bigger skill set to kind of support people who are coming through and are having trouble accessing sport and getting their foot in the door. And I think that's massive. And also those female, particularly female sports coaches and PE teachers who, their own safeguarding, their own welfare, their own mental health, because what they're seeing is young people falling, you know, between, you know, off the radar and really struggling, and they're not able to reach them. So it's just a massive problem and a massive worry. You know, but I think that's going to be very, very important, is having that trusted person you can go to and say, I'm having these challenges, I'm having these fears, and then those people and those organisations who've got that experience and are genuinely trying to help and support, they can signpost and they can show people where to go.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, I think it's gonna. I'm glad that you're going to focus on that. That's going to be really helpful. Like, because I've had bad experiences with PE teachers, and I know like a lot of people really hated certain ones, and it probably did put them off like pursuing any sort of career path in that field.
And as girls, we like kind of like nice kit, right? I'm always teased because I'm saying to, you know, England boxing, like, come on, we need like really nice officials kit, and we need like proper gear to wear in the ring that is, because it's not just men's black trousers and a white shirt and a bow tie, because I know it's not about me as a referee in the ring. No one's looking at me unless I balls up, right? But it's about me feeling confident and comfortable and feeling like I'm in my lane. And you know, for us, I think, you know, talking broadly and that, but clothes and kit and feeling confident and comfortable and good about yourself is really, really important to your confidence.
Oh, definitely.
So, you know, all those things, feeling part of a team, having like Badu Sports who were on that call, they've got great branding. You know, Nike gives them kit, and all the girls that I saw on those in those basketball courts doing their stuff when I went down to observe the project, they felt like they were really part of something, and you could see they had that confidence to go out and take part and do it because they were part of this bigger thing. And I just think it's really important, that sense of community. I don't know if I've been helpful. Is this the kind of thing that you wanted to talk about?
Oh no, this has been fantastic. It's covered so much ground and like raised a lot of points that I think are really important. So I really thank you so much for talking to me today.
No, it's fine. I mean, if you want a follow up, if there's anything else you meant to ask or you didn't, you know, just drop me a line. No problem. All right then, Sophie. It was lovely to talk. Good luck with everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.